I get to introduce to you Star Parker. Star Parker is the founder and president of CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. She is a pro-life activist and highly sought-after expert on Capitol Hill and for national radio, television, and print interviews. Having personally experienced the tragedy of abortion, Ms. Parker is an outspoken opponent of policies that promote abortion. Currently, Ms. Parker is a regular commentator on CNN, TBN, C-SPAN, CBN, and Fox News. Please give a wonderful Texas welcome to Star Parker.
Thank you. Are you kidding me? No, you deserve the ovation. I am amazingly excited to be here this evening for your 25th anniversary. In fact, I'm more than excited. I am so humbled because I'm one of those that was somewhere else while you were doing the heavy lifting for all of us. I'm one of those that prayed through. I'm one of those that watched every step of the way. I would have loved to have been here, but when I saw the announcement that you were keeping the pro-lifers quiet, I thought, you know, I better not go. I might end up in jail, and I'll be the spoiler of what God was doing. The decent people from quiet communities, you did an amazing thing for the world. You know, I know a lot of you know me from my nationally syndicated column. You know, some, they've never seen me in person. They see me in the little box, and then they come up to me and they say, oh, you're so much prettier in person. I say, thank you. And then others, you know me, you're Foxaholics, so you know me from Fox. And you tell me you're so much prettier in person, but I know that's not true because they pile a lot of makeup on you in Fox. And in fact, when I do the morning shows, especially Varney, it's pretty embarrassing to walk out at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and you still have all that makeup on. I feel like I'm back in my old life, just getting home, not in starting the day. But some of you even supporters of CURE, and I appreciate that. I appreciate it. But I got to tell you, this is the most important work in the world. And when I think about what you were able to do to this last session, it is absolutely a miracle. You know, in 2008, after the elections, it got really dark in Washington, D.C. I work in Washington, D.C., but I'm from California, you're right. I live in California, I work in Washington, D.C. And some people think that's a long commute, but if you've ever been in Southern California on the 405 freeway, you know that it's not bad to go all the way across country and to get work done. And some people want to make fun of Southern California and call us Sodom, while Washington, D.C. is Gomorrah, and how could I do all of that? And I say, well, at least in Sodom, if we are comparing the two, we spend our own money. But in 2008, after the election, the lights went out in Washington, D.C. And I was one of those that was absolutely miserable because I knew that pro-life was the most important work in the world. And I knew that not much would be getting done that year, and I was extremely saddened. And I was on my way back home right before Christmas to, you know, spend Christmas time in California. And I was miserable. I was going to go sit in my Habakkuk chair, pout for a little while. For those of you not familiar with the prophet Habakkuk, he actually didn't sit in a chair, but I do have a Habakkuk chair. But he stood and just said, I'm just going to wait, and God is going to speak to me on this one. And I was on my way back to Southern California, and I had to go through Minnesota Airport because that's the layover airport. I was trying to think before which airport I was in, and I thought it was Denver, but I knew it wasn't Denver because I was in a restaurant, and if I were in Denver, I would have been at this little French boutique they have in the airport. But in Minnesota Airport, they have some amazing restaurants, and so I was sitting in a restaurant. It's called Ike's, and I read the wall, how they put the little. This was like one of those restaurants where they put their own little signature all over the wall. And that's where I saw the little quote from General Douglas MacArthur. It said, we're not retreating, we're advancing in another direction. And I didn't know what God was going to do at that time. And the next thing we know, we're approaching the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And what's so fascinating, Lord, is it bothering us because I'm holding it? What's so fascinating about him is, you know, this winter in Washington, we had 2 snow days. And both of them were during the March for Life. On Inauguration Monday or so, it was 65 degrees. And then hundreds of thousands of marchers came to Washington. We got sleet. And the next day it snowed. And then by Monday, when it was another opportunity for the liberals to descend, it was 65 degrees again. And then we go into this year and we find out about Gosnell. He makes the front page of the paper. And I'm going somewhere with this because under this hour, we were not retreating. And what you did was advance us in another direction. You have changed the discussions. And I'm going to tell you something. My prayer is going to be that that case gets to the court in Washington. We need to get back to the court. Because the answers are, and one of the biggest challenges that we have in our society today, that too many are getting lost in this lie of Roe v. Wade. You know, he told me about, it was told in my introduction that I had gone in an abortion clinic. And they put it in the little bulletin there. No, it wasn't until after the 4th time I went into one of their so-called safe, legal, rare clinics that I had a gut instinct way down deep inside that there must be something wrong with killing your offspring. Maybe the feminists don't have this one right. And that's when I got pregnant again, still not married, and had the child. Oh, hold it. Don't hold the bottom. Oh, they wanted to attach one to me. They came over and said, we're going to do the little attachment. I'm like, and where would you attach it? I'm wearing a dress. I think that a man made those things. I think a female engineer should go out and design a microphone that women can wear on them with dresses. The box, that's the problem for you guys that are saying, why? What's the problem? The box. If you don't have a belt or a pocket, what do you do with the little box? No, what the answers are on our side, and we know it. You know, this isn't the first time in the history of this country that we've had a big moral question on the table, that God looks for decent men and women from quiet communities to do his work. You know, when I saw the line of the legislators, actually I knew about the blue t-shirts, not just from what you stream online, but because I was just up in northern part of your state and met one of the legislators, Phillips, who was talking about what he felt as a legislator when those blue t-shirts showed up. This is not the first time we've had a big moral question on the table. There was an opportunity for us to get engaged years ago as a society where you had people that were having conflicting views on a big moral question, a crime against humanity, a question of slavery. I don't like to mention it too much in the South, but we know the various warriors that were doing amazing work to say it may be legal, but it's not lawful in God's eyes. And we know that abortion may be legal, but it's not lawful in God's eyes, and we know that he ultimately has alternatives. He knows that we as a society are lost, and he needs people that are going to continuously war on his behalf. I was very lost in the lie of the left. I have people look at me today and say, but your resume looks so amazing. How did that happen? Believing the lie that the poor are poor because the wealthy are wealthy, that my problems were somebody else's fault, that America was so inherently racist I didn't need the mainstream, and watch my life spiral into a little dark hole. A lot of people are believing that lie today. 3,000 to 4,000 women tomorrow are going to get up and say today is the day. And they're going to go into one of these so-called safe, legal, rare abortion clinics. And they might hear a little bit of piped-in music. Maybe they'll have some carpet on the floor, a little picture of a flower on the wall like they did when I was having my abortions. But after Gosnell, we know that that's probably not true. The abortion doctor in Philadelphia, for those of you that are not following the story, finally was convicted for murder. And then they go in the back room and they might get put to sleep. And then they go out the back door empty, and their lives are changed forever. But we're the ones with the truth on our side to know that God takes people's fate and turns to great destiny that he had planned for them. There's no excuse for us to have abortion any more than there was for us to have had slavery. And so when we think about what has happened here in this great state, the momentum to stop death after 5 months, it doesn't mean that people are still not lost and are still not going to need help. So we have to be encouraged that we have all of the answers on our side. I remember when I'm in building my little testimony, being that lost. You know, it's amazing because people, they wonder, how are so many broken today? How is it that we've gotten in this state that we're in our culture, to develop out an opportunity for such an aggressive culture war? Well, you know, we used to have rules that governed the way we behave, but we've removed much of the Bible from our public square. We scrubbed our schools of any reference of God. And so we had a feminist or a sexual revolution, and people began to break down. You know, every other discipline in society, we know that there are rules to govern those disciplines. There are rules to engineering, science, math. There are rules to medicine and music. You know, I just recently bought a piano. I'm going to self-teach, and my neighbors can tell you I do not know the rules yet. There are rules even to art, except in New York. I was telling somebody the other day, no, seriously, I was in a museum in New York recently, and there was this piece of glass against the wall, and the name of the art piece was Glass Against the Wall. And people from Boston were actually going by looking at it like, deep meaning. Okay, so maybe in art you can move the rules a little bit, but you're not going to remove the rules in medicine. I remember about 6 years ago when my knee turned 50, I had to go to the doctor. And I didn't like doctors, okay? I've never been one to like doctors. I mean, come on, you walk in their office and there's a scale. What's up with that? Then they take you in the back room and they make you take off all your clothes, and then they want to tell you what's wrong with you, what you're eating is wrong, and how much sleep you need. So I never liked doctors. I like doctors now because I've always been for the underdog. So I like doctors. I like Wall Street bankers. I like hedge fund managers. I got a list growing since Washington has been taken over by the, well. But I didn't like doctors then, and so I had to go to the doctor, though, when my knee turned 50, and so, you know, first thing I want to do is look at my high-heel shoes to shake his head. I said, oh, no, doctor, because, see, there are rules of fashion, too. There's nothing to do with these high-heel shoes. He said, well, you know, every now and then, women your age need surgery. Women my age need surgery on their knee. You know what? This is not the time to hear that he didn't know the rules to medicine. I'm looking at that degree, and I don't want to think that he bought it on eBay. I want to know, do you know the rules? So everywhere in disciplines in life, we understand that there are rules that govern those disciplines. But life, we figured, well, they'll figure it out on their own. No, what happens is people look outside and see what everybody else is doing. And what they see outside is pop culture. And what they've been told outside is that there's nothing wrong with killing what God calls his reward. And so they get caught up in it. And the next thing you know, we have wounded people. A whole society now of wounded people. And that's why what has happened in this great state is so important. You know, the Lord will continue the work in people's lives. He continued the work in my life. After that time, and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, I ended up on welfare. That's a part of my story, ended up on welfare. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people say that they don't want to get involved in pro-life. Because what if they have those children? They're going to end up on poverty and on welfare. God knows welfare is inconsistent with his scripture. He'll get to that point in their life. It's not consistent with the founding of this country. We're a nation rooted in freedom and personal responsibility, not a welfare state. He understands that. He also knows that it doesn't match with the scripture, because the 10 Commandments says don't covet. And socialism is rooted in covetousness. Somebody has something somebody else doesn't have, so we go hire politicians to take it from them. Now we're in a violation of another commandment, the 8th, that says do not steal. Because it is theft. I mean, come on. The IRS is not writing letters talking about, would you like to benevolently give to a poverty program? So he'll get to that point in somebody's life. I ended up on welfare, watching my life spiral into a little dark hole. It wasn't until in it, 7 years over a period of time, 3.5 years consistently, that finally I went to church. It was really interesting how I even got to church. because I was trying to live up under the heavy hand of Uncle Sam. Oh, you think he's hurting taxpayers? He's cruel to the poor. Don't work, don't save, don't get married, and we'll kind of keep you enslaved to this poverty plantation. That's the rules. And I was living a very, very aggressive life. In fact, for those of you that know, I actually penned my autobiography just to give you a glimpse into that time. My autobiography is called Pimps, Whores, and Welfare Brats. And I actually left a lot of details out because I wasn't sure about statutes of limitations. So, and I've got to be very careful what I say here, because there are a lot of judges in the room and others that are in law enforcement. You can't mess with Texas. I mean, the minute you get on the airport, every place you go in Texas, don't mess with Texas. Okay, fine. I won't tell you any more about it. But I was looking to subsidize my little welfare check and happened into a place of business in South Central Los Angeles. I wanted them to pay me under the table, and they didn't pay like that. They told me they were legitimate businessmen. They had the truth on their side, the same way you have the truth on your side. They said, no, your lifestyle, frankly, is unacceptable. You can't even work here. I'm like, unacceptable? That's a hate crime. You can't use that word in today's society. Unacceptable to who? And they said, God, and I got out of there. I'd never heard God with a capital G. And they kept calling me up, wanting me to go to church with them. And if I'd known a lawyer from the ACLU, I would have sued him for religious harassment. Probably one, too. I live in California. But I didn't know any lawyers then. I know a lot of lawyers now in Washington, D.C., and they actually remind me of the people I used to hang out on the street corner with. That's why you had to do the work for us. But I didn't know any lawyers then, so I ended up going to their church. And that's when I heard the gospel. We have the truth on our side. I heard that God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, not counting our sin against us, that he loved me, that he died for me, that he came to set me free. See, one of the challenges for liberals is they're fighting the truth. One of the reasons that they don't want these children to live is because they have an elitist attitude, because they know that if those children live, then their mama might get saved and she becomes free to develop what God's plan would be for her life. It's not our job to decide whether they should go on welfare or not, to base whether we should save them or not. Our job is to rescue them from the hand of the abortionist knife. Our job is to get this horrible crime against humanity out of our society so that the blood is not on our hand. He'll take care of the work. Once I started going to church there, he knew it wasn't but a matter of time before he needed to judge the welfare in my life. He had other issues to clean up with me at that point. And then one day he looked out at 4,000 people, pointed his finger and said, what are you doing living on welfare? And I'm like, who, me? How does he know I live on welfare? Because, you know, once you start going to church after a while, you start cleaning up and moving a little bit closer to the front, and all the new people come in the back, and you're like, there. You know where they're coming from. I wasn't all the way in the front row yet, Pastor. I was still a little bit distant. But I was wondering how he knew I lived on welfare. And, and then I thought, well, everything he said about my money, I was doing already. Now he wants my welfare. That's my entitlement based on what my ancestors went through. And he said, I was tithing. I gave him food stamps once. They sent them back. They said the church didn't take food stamps. And I thought, well, maybe that's how he knew I was living on welfare. And then he just kept talking. The government is not your source. God is. And he made me make a choice, God or government. And then he said, and my God will supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. And I'm sitting there thinking about his God, creator of heaven and earth. No, they're not only attacking his humanity by exterminating them in the womb. Everything that Psalm 10 says is exactly true on this issue. They sit in lurking places to destroy the innocent in secret. Then there are attacks everywhere. There are attacks. They're trying to take a little cross in San Diego down. Well, it's a big cross, actually. So we know that they're trying to remove his presence, not just out of the schools, but everywhere. I kind of think the politicians in Washington, D.C. are behind it. Because if you go into Washington, you have symbols. And in fact, up in the Senate chamber, you have all the philosophers of the world with their little heads turned sideways, except Moses looking right at those liars. That's why I think they're the reason that we're having all these other challenges in our society when it comes to removing God's symbols. But there are some symbols you just can't take. In fact, I saw him today, flying up out of Southern California early in the morning. Who made that 6:45 flight? Early in the morning. You get up out of John Wayne, get up over the water and over the clouds. the miracle. One time I was down in Florida, in South Florida, flying up to North Florida early in the morning, the sun's coming up. Oh, no, you can't remove his presence. And in fact, we used to have his presence so many places in nature that you can understand and appreciate how the psalmist can say, when I just consider the heavens, the work of his fingers, the moon and the stars that he's ordained, and you compare that to $430 a month, a couple $100 of food stamps and a Medicare card, oh, it wasn't rocket science. We don't have to finish the work. What we have to do is be here today to make sure that this stops under our watch. The same way we had warriors who made sure that slavery stopped under their watch. In fact, I was asking the pastor about, what you had to endure. It was a very difficult time, but it's been darker than that. I couldn't remember the man's name. I had to look it up. Charles Sumner. Some of you might know his name. Senator out of Massachusetts, got beaten almost to death. He never recovered from his wounds on the Senate floor in Washington, D.C. over the issue of slavery. Our work is great because this is our hour to do what's right. And God will finish the work. Oh, it didn't take him long. I listened to that pastor, and I just wrote my caseworker and said, take my name off. I'm trusting God. I shouldn't have put that part. I didn't realize how demonic some of these caseworkers are. But that's all right. I didn't do the unpardonable sin is don't send your CA7 back. Here it's probably called a TX7, the paper that they make sure that, they keep you kind of enslaved to the government poverty plantation. Did anyone get 18? Nope. Did anyone die? Nope. Anyone go to school? No. Anybody work? No. And then, did anyone put any money in the bank? No, and then you get your money back. You get the money. Well, I just didn't send the porn back, so I had to do what most people have to do when they burn all the bridges in their life. I had to go get a little job. I wish I could say they put a money tree. The Lord put it in my yard, but he didn't, and it wasn't my yard anyway. I was on welfare. It was probably your yard. But I guarantee you there was no money tree there, okay? There really was no money tree there. So I had to do what everybody has to do is go get a little job. And I remember, and I will always remember, walking in that place to get this little job, I could hear what I'd been told all my life by people who say they represent me because they wear the same color skin I do, that white people don't hire black people unless the government makes them. I could hear it going in the back of my mind. That's why I work in welfare reform today, because those girls are scared to death because they've been hearing it all their little lives. I was glad I walked inside this little bitty white guy. I figured if he doesn't hire me, I'm going to beat him up because I really need a job. I'm going to have to go back to my old life and then come back forward and go repent to the church. But he hired me. And actually, that's when I found out that God was in the talent distribution business, that he may have given one man 5 and one man 2 and one 1. I had one because that little white guy walked by my desk one day and said, you sure talk a lot. He said, have you ever considered sales and marketing? And I didn't know what he was talking about, but I figured it out, and I ended up with a degree in marketing and figured if I could sell for him, I could sell for myself, and I went into my own business. And I'm going to tell you something. After the 92 Los Angeles riots destroyed my business, I wasn't going back to welfare because I could remember depositing more money in a week than the welfare had sent me in a year. We don't have to finish the work. We have to be here on the question that God has asked us to address, and that is this horrible crime against humanity in our midst called abortion. And it has deeply hurt us. Oh, I could continue with my story to get to all the doors that he opened, but time doesn't allow for me to talk about the goodness of God continuing the work in the people's lives. We don't want to get distracted in the rhetoric of the left. What we want to keep focused on is how deeply abortion has scarred us as a country, how deeply abortion has hurt women, how deeply abortion has hurt children, how deeply abortion has hurt babies. Babies. Ultrasound, sonogram. I mean, how did we even get to the point that we bought the lie that there was no life there? But now we see in the womb. We know it's life. I mean, when I was pregnant with my daughter, one time I put anchovies on a pizza. Honey, you know that that's a baby in there. I didn't sleep. That's what the whole ice cream and pickles is all about. Abortion has hurt us. It hurts these babies. We know it. We heard testimony when the ban on partial birth abortion went to the courts. And one of the judges up in New York asked the doctor, does the baby feel? Because the doctor was trying to explain to him this partial birth abortion where we were breaching children in the womb, pulling them all the way out except the head, jabbing the back of the head with surgical scissors to get the brain tissue and collapsing the child and throwing it away as human waste. And so when the doctor was understanding and he was asked about this procedure, he said, well, you know, it's difficult to explain, but it's like cracking lettuce. And the judge just said, well, does the baby feel pain? And the doctor said, well, of course it feels pain. And remember, C-SPAN cameras were on and said, but it doesn't express it the way we do. Abortion hurts. It doesn't just hurt the babies, it hurts the children. How many stories do we have to hear about the siblings of people who are missing someone in their life? You know, I've heard too many testimonies. I've been in this work almost 25 years now as well. And we have too many stories. We all know the story of Gianna, who wrote her book about it. But you meet these live folks where the sibling knows somebody's missing. A girl up in Omaha was telling me that her son was so excited about the things he was learning in human development and in psychology classes and human behavior. And one day he runs in and says, Mom, but you would never believe what we learned about today. In fact, if this is true, then I would be a middle child based on his behaviors. And she went flush because he was a middle child. She had killed his offspring. Too many stories hurting us deeply. People in our own lives. You can't just pick up 55 million and think it doesn't hurt people. The women. I can go on all evening about the stories. The men. We're having record numbers of men coming forth now, talking about their abortion experiences. The boyfriend that told his girlfriend, I'll leave you, and he leaves anyway. The father that tells his daughter, you have to, I'm the deacon, and his secret, silent enters into their relationship. The husband that tells a wife, no, I can't do this, we have 3 children, we can't afford it. I tell you, I actually met someone that had 3 children, beautiful daughters, and they aborted. They talked each other into abortion, and they aborted that child, and they couldn't look at each other again, and end up in divorce. I can't understand that one, though, because I'm telling you, if he's a typical man, I could tell you how to sneak that baby in the house. All you have to do is give him the television clicker, and if he, there's always a sports game on. It's like ESPN is just like 9 channels, maybe 59. I don't know. I don't watch that much TV. But I know, seriously, I mean, if he mentions your weight, just put him on the couch for a couple of weeks. He'll never say another word. And then give him the sports and sports and sports. Then when you're ready to have the baby, just get mad at him for watching so much sports that you go to your mom's house and have a baby. Next thing you know, Junior's sitting at the dinner table. It'd be like, who is this kid? He's here every day. Oh, that's Junior. Forgot to tell you about him. Abortion has deeply hurt us. It's hurt our men. It's hurt our country. And it hurts God. And I know I'm out of time. It hurts God. And that's why he's going to end this. And I'm so excited about what you've been able to do. It may happen under our watch. We may see an end on a national scale. Oh, you can run it out of this state for sure. But we're going to run it out of this country. And then we're going to impact the world. You can't have, for hundreds of years, millions of people praying every day, don't let the needy, O Lord, be forgotten. Don't let their hope be taken away. For 100 years. You've got this in the liturgy of the Catholics, the Episcopals, and the Lutherans. Do not let the needy, O Lord, be forgotten. Don't let their hope be taken away. Well, in that Psalm 9:18, it's a statement. The needy won't be forgotten, and their hope will not be taken away. And in my Bible, right across is Psalm 12. And right in the middle of Psalm 12, it says, for the oppression of the poor and for the sighing of the needy. Such a word of agony, sighing. Now I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to set them in the safety they yearn for. It says the Lord. So he's going to end this. It's just a matter of moments. And what he does when he ends a great crime against humanity is he turns the history clock on. He turned that history clock on after slavery, and we look at ourselves and say, how under the brilliance of this great country did we endure this 80 years and 600,000 dead later? He turned the history clock on after the Holocaust, too. And we ask ourselves, what was wrong with us that it took us so long? What was wrong with the church there that they just turned the music up and sang a little louder? And he's going to turn the history clock on here. And our children, our grandchildren, oh, God has blessed me. Not only, I've met so many women who, after one abortion, were not able to birth at all. I not only birthed one, I birthed two. Got to keep one 14 years, the other I got to marry off, and now she has 2 grandchildren for me. Mr. James, 7.5. Miss Naomi. And the history clock is going to show them this hour. And it's going to show your grandchildren too. And they're going to look at those pictures of what happened today. And they're going to come home and they're going to say, what did you do? This happened under your watch. And you want to be able to look them in the eye and say, I did absolutely everything I could to stop it. So I just want to end with, be strong in the Lord. Thank you for encouraging all pro-lifers throughout the rest of this country. As the Apostle Paul told us, just to remain steadfast and immovable, to always endure in the work of the Lord. Because we can know, and we can be assured by what the men and women in your great state did, that our labor is not in vain in him. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of what you warred through and encouraging me to be able to go back to Washington, D.C. and bring your spirit with me.